resource webinar series from AKA Coach & Company. I'm Annie Kirshenman, and I'm your host for our topic today, Here Comes Gen Z. Now, this rounds out our exploration of generations in the workplace here on 20 Minutes to Business Insights. So if you weren't able to join us for those previous presentations, there are recordings. If you'd like to view them, please contact us and we'll make sure that you can get access to that. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video now so that you can concentrate on the slides. So with me today is Ann Barton. She's going to be monitoring our Q&A. As we know, this is a short and to the point webinar, and we have a lot packed in to 20 minutes as usual. We also hope to have time for a few questions. So if you have a question or comment, go ahead and type it into the chat box. We'll take what we can at the end of the session. Briefly, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Annie Kirshenman. I'm a board-certified coach with the specialty designation Executive Corporate Business and Leadership. I'm also a business person, have been for more than 20 years now. However, business is not where I started. I come from a background in the arts, and creativity as well as innovation are a major part of my work today as a coach and facilitator. I'm also a former executive. I stepped down from my CEO role in 2005, and I just love sharing what I've learned, what works, and what's interesting for me as well as others. Ergo, this webinar series. So if you're joining us live, thanks again for being here. If you're watching a recording, thanks for taking some time to view it. Okay, so to our topic, Generation Z. Now, in researching this generation, I noticed that the estimates about its size vary in the literature, and this could be due to the fact that this generation is still emerging. More about that in a moment. We can say, though, that in the United States, Gen Z is roughly 23 million strong and about 2 billion worldwide. The literature did tend to agree on the fact that this generation is likely to surpass all previous generations in terms of size. It's currently roughly 1/4 of the entire US population, and it's also known as iGen, the Centennials, and the Sharing generation, to name but a few tags that are being thrown around about Gen Z. So again, while the dates for this generation also vary, generally speaking, we can say they were born between the mid-1990s and up to the present. It's important to note that the end date for this generation has not yet been determined. We're also bearing in mind that researchers typically like to vet adult characteristics when they're identifying generational trends and identities. And since the oldest Gen Zers are in their late teens and early 20s, we're staying tuned on that. Be that as it may, hallmarks of this generation are already emerging. The Center for Generational Kinetics has a lot of really terrific information, including white papers and some very recent 2017 research results. You'll be getting that link post-webinar so you can have a look. And some of the hallmarks that are already showing up. Gen Z is self-reliant, self-aware, innovative, and goal-oriented. They want to make a difference in the world. A large portion of this generation would prefer to have a job that makes a positive impact in some way. And an overwhelming majority of them are eco-conscious and concerned about humanity's impact on the environment. It's a diverse generation, even more so than the millennials, and a heads up to brand managers and employers, you're going to have to learn how to see the world through the diverse eyes of Gen Z if you want to win their loyalty. It's a highly educated generation. Again, projected that a larger percentage of Gen Z will attend and graduate from college than any previous generation, including the millennials. This is also a self-educated generation. They can learn complex things like how to upgrade your computer's operating system the same way they can learn how to bake a vegan apple pie, one YouTube video at a time. While, of course, they still possess general knowledge, they have come of age placing a priority on how fast you can find the right information rather than on whether or not you know the right information. So, underscoring this extremely strong hallmark, Gen Z was born digital, and all technology all the time could well be the moniker for Generation Z. So to emphasize this point, I'm going to share a short video now where members of Gen Z speak for themselves. This is produced by a terrific resource called C-Space, and you can see their web address there. We'll also be sharing that in the resources post-webinar. So here comes Gen Z.
What does it mean to be a part of Gen Z? How would you define your generation?
I would define my generation as everything's constantly changing. Like, we're surrounded by new things, new technology, new ideas.
We're the first generation that's grown up with social media as a real big part of our lives.
We're a lot more social as a generation.
Growing up with companies like Google and Facebook really shaped how we think about the world. We saw the financial crisis right when we were becoming old enough to understand what that meant.
Being a part of Gen Z for me is asking why all the time.
To not be happy or content with what has been going on in the past.
Finding new ways to do old things. We're a generation of problem solvers who are learning to take what we have and go beyond what we already know.
Gen Z is really just a word. It's not really a thing you could describe people by.
I really don't think of it as a community at all. I don't think of it as a unit, except when told to.
The more the world changes, the less thoughtful people are.
People have no excuse with the mass information out there to not feel a certain sense of responsibility.
I don't think technology accurately substitutes human contact, and I think we're lacking a lot of that.
If you were in charge, how would you change the way business is done?
Truthfully, I really don't think about companies that much.
I would definitely place more of an emphasis on good citizenship.
There are a lot of stores where you can get the exact same thing for either $100 or $10, and the $100 one is somehow better because it costs more. I think that sucks.
I think our generation is kind of on the brink of maybe a cultural revolution.
I think they need to be more malleable. They need to be more like able to constantly change, because I feel like the world around us is we're constantly changing it. What I like now, I probably won't even like tomorrow. Who knows?
Okay, Anne, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, so our next resource is from an outfit called Vision Critical. They're located in Vancouver, British Columbia, and this report is available. We're going to be sending that link, of course, post-webinar. It's a fairly comprehensive and very interesting report. We're just going to be able to share a few of the highlights with you today. They say Generation Z is the future of the global economy, and they say that future is already at your doorstep. By 2018, that's next year, Gen Z will control $200 billion in direct spending. In the meanwhile, they influence more than $600 billion in spending by their parents. Gen Z is the so-called sober generation. But while they're optimistic and driven about their personal ambitions, they're also pragmatic and aware of forces beyond their control. Again, here we see that ethically diverse generation. And the authors say that Gen Z is likely to be the last generation in America with a Caucasian majority. They're savers, not spenders. Most of them were investing heavily into savings accounts before the age of 10. They're an on-demand generation. They pretty much abandoned television and desktop PCs for laptops and mobile devices. They're an expert online generation of researchers and shoppers, and they will visit a store only as a last resort. This generation has an 8-second attention span, sparking the increasing popularity of 10 seconds or less video advertising and apps like Snapchat. They prefer fresh ingredients over processed foods. The words natural, sustainable, and organic resonate strongly on product packaging and restaurant menus. This group is not seduced by high-end luxury brands, as we saw in the video. They tend to prize value and personal style more than designer labels. They're far ahead of all other generations when it comes to mobile payments and bank transactions. The authors say Gen Z carries their bank branches in their pockets. They're career-focused. They're ready to work hard, think for themselves, and pursue new opportunities. And finally, in this report, they say Gen Z believes in diversity, equality, non-discrimination, as well as the alleviation of poverty. Okay, a couple more resources for you, Gen Z in their own words. We are Generation Z and the voice of Gen Z. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into hearing what this generation is saying about themselves, you'll get that in the resource list post-webinar. Okay, so Gen Z in the workplace. Again, very new to the workplace, so stay tuned. And this particular report, Generation Z in the Workplace, is very recent, published in March of this year, 2017. And it gives us some clues as to Gen Z's professional priorities, and these are bullet pointed in order of importance. They want to do well in their jobs. They want to make money. Work-life balance is very important to them. They're also interested in being promoted. Keeping with that changing environment, not ever knowing what is going to be next or what I'm going to like tomorrow, as we saw in the video. Equally, they're looking at perhaps changing careers, not necessarily wedded to one career path. And the ability to retire at the appropriate time. So this particular resource provides research-based information about how Gen Z workers can get the most out of their careers, and also offers some suggestions for employers on how to help Gen Z develop their potential. Another very recent research publication, also March of this year, they introduced 7 distinguishing characteristics of Gen Z. This generation is phygital, meaning the line between the physical and digital worlds for Gen Z hasn't just been blurred, it's been completely eliminated. A whopping 91% of Gen Zers say that a company's technological sophistication would influence their decision to accept a position with a firm. This is a hyper-custom generation. So from job titles to career paths, the pressure to customize has been turned up by this generation. 56% of Gen Zers want to write their own job descriptions, for example. It's a very realistic generation. Growing up with skeptical Gen X parents in the aftermath of 9/11 and the Great Recession has created in Gen Z a very pragmatic mindset when it comes to preparing for the future. They are determined not to make the same mistakes as the millennials. A strong fear of missing out. Gen Zers suffer from an intense fear of missing out on anything. The authors say this is good news because they're likely to stay on top of all the trends. However, the bad news is that they're likely to worry they're not moving ahead fast enough. We economists, from Uber to Airbnb, Gen Zers have only known a world with a shared economy. They will push to break down internal and external silos like never before. This is a do-it-yourself generation, and the authors are projecting that this fierce, independent nature will collide head-on with many of the collaborative cultures that millennials have fought for. So again, stay tuned on this, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with the we economists, the shared economy trait. And finally, very driven generation. With parents who drilled into them that there are winners and there are losers, this demographic is one motivated group. 72% of Gen Zers say they are competitive with people doing the same job. Okay, so what do employers want? Well, again, it's early, and we don't really have a lot of experiential data from employers, so we don't know the answer to that question yet exactly. And early concerns tend to circulate around these two issues. One, that Gen Z will not stay in one place for very long. Again, that changing environment, changing careers. And that they cannot or will not invest fully into the job, to be dedicated to the job. It's also, there's some speculation that these concerns may be amplified by the fact that older and more traditionally dedicated workers are retiring. So this is really a heads up to employers to pay attention as Gen Z is coming into the workplace. What's going to be important to you? So a little bit about the impact of this. Of course, based on the projected size of Gen Z, a potentially huge impact. And we're basically speculating here, again, because of the youth of this generation. But what we can say is that businesses really do need to begin including this demographic in their 5 to 10 year strategic plans. And that would be both from a customer perspective as well as an employer perspective. We need to be bearing in mind that this is a fast-moving, ever-changing generation, and they might be challenging to pin down, so we're going to have to pay attention. From a marketing perspective, we can say a couple of things. Keep it digital and keep it short. Remember that 8-second attention span. And MSNBC Business offers a few more tips for marketers. Not surprisingly, they say go big online and social, but probably not Facebook. This generation tends to prefer Snapchat as an app. So sidebar, I was not familiar with Snapchat, so I visited the website and watched a few YouTube videos that explain how and why it's different. If you're interested in marketing to this generation, I suggest you Google it and check it out. Snapchat definitely appealing to younger generations. You're going to want to keep their personal information secure. With all that online activity, cybersecurity ranks high with them. Share diversity. Again, a reminder, they are looking for diversity in order to determine their loyalty. Add some music to your marketing, they like it. And finally, design with them in mind. This generation, much more product focused than interested in marketing signage. Okay, so we'll be going to your questions and comments if there are any in just a moment. But first, what's next? You'll receive a follow-up email, of course, with the information on those resources, a link for the video recording if you'd like to watch it again or share it, and information on how to register for the next free 20 Minutes to Business Insights, which will be July 19th at the same time. We're going to be talking about the dimensions of leadership. What are the 8 dimensions of leadership? Why is each one an important skill for any leader to cultivate? And how can leaders use this information to be more effective? So hope you can join us for that. Okay, well, we are bumping up against our time here, but Anne, do we have any questions or comments in the chat?
I don't see anything at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you do have a question or comment, here's my contact information. You can reach out. Happy to answer any questions you have. And wrapping up, this has been 20 Minutes to Business Insights, a complimentary resource webinar series from AKA Coaching Company. Thank you for joining us live or viewing the recording. I'm Annie Kirschenman. Again, this is my contact information if you'd like to be in touch. And I hope to see you at the next webinar on July 19th when we will be exploring the dimensions of leadership. Thanks again and have a great rest of your day.